Hi, my name's Alex Tyson, and this is Uncommon. I worked in my parents' company for years up until that point, but I'd worked full time over the summer. And during that time, I had to send out testimonials like by post to get our clients to write back their experience of using infrared sauna. And I was getting these replies back, and like we were changing people's lives. Like one lady was sent home to die from her doctor. She was given 6 weeks. She purchased one of our saunas. She's still alive today, right? And she attributes her being alive to the sauna, which was the catalyst for her to change some other things in her life. There was a lady who each morning she would wake up and she couldn't walk because her legs had this disease. She started using the sauna. 3 months later, she hiked a small mountain, And so I'm there like reading this stuff being like, we're actually doing something here, We're not just selling saunas. We're helping people with their health. And then that juxtaposed with being at uni, anti-differentiating these difficult equations and thermodynamics and the people that I was working with for that. And I was just like, yeah, it just wasn't doing it for me.
Yeah. And a lot of people will have those moments as well. It sounds like you were lucky to find it at uni, although your parents probably thought at the time, fuck, what's he doing?
Correct.
Because my dad was adamant, like I couldn't become a printer or anything like that. Couldn't get into the media business. I had to become a profession, like accountant, lawyer, etc. And I'm like you, I did the degree. I pushed through. And then I reckon I was doing a grad role at an accounting firm. And I was sitting there and I was like, I'm probably going to have crippling depression if I continue doing this. And I was like adamant that I just had too much of a strong personality and it just wasn't my vibe. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, those moments are powerful though, because it really defines to you and you always pull back to it just like you did before.
Yeah. And I think like, at the time, it may not make sense, but there's something inside of you that is just like being conjured up. And I couldn't have put my finger on it exactly at the time that I wanted to become part of this health business, and health was going to be such an integral part of my life and helping other people achieve high levels of health. But it just kind of happened, At the time, I wouldn't have known that's where I was going, but I just was called to do that.
And so iHouse Saunas then, is that your parents' business?
It was.
It was. Okay. So that's sort of where you got into the sauna sort of thing. So talk to me about that segue from spas to saunas. What was the thinking around that? Who first spread this idea in the family and how did you get pulled into it?
Yeah. So the saunas came about because parents are doing spas. And like I said, dad was the business guy, but mum was into the health side of things. And they came across infrared saunas when they were traveling through Europe. And long story short, mum was like, I think that if half of what they say these things can do for people is true, we need to get involved now, and my dad was like, oh, well, I guess we could probably sell that. So it kind of started out as very simple from that perspective, getting out of the spas and into the saunas. And so they started importing saunas from another supplier overseas, doing the whole distribution thing again, like they were with the spas. And then after a few years, they realized they're not going to be able to offer the level of quality and customer service that they wanted to if they were doing it through another company. So they created their own brand. That was when iHealth Saunas started in 2008. They went and found a supplier, which took a few years to get a supplier that would build it how we wanted it. And that was when iHealth Saunas kicked off.
And so what was your initial involvement there? What were you doing?
At that stage, I was like 15. So
no shit.
Yeah. So I was installing saunas on the weekend for a bit of cash. We were going to trade shows and things. I'd help set them up, pull them down. Or if we were installing one in someone's home on the weekend, I would go and do that with someone else on the team driving because I couldn't drive at the time. So I was just always involved from a small amount, but from a young age. And then it just grew from there. I was always involved. Eventually, I left uni and started working full time, and I started doing doing the marketing side of the business initially. And that was where my involvement grew.
And so, you're doing that from 2015, or at least LinkedIn says so, I'm sure. As you mentioned before, at 15 years of age, you were doing shit in the business.
Yeah.
What happened there? Was it that they shut the business down, or they sold you the business, or you just decided to go out and do your own thing? What was the thought process? And is that where the idea of making your own, well, I think you said it before, that making your own with a supplier was part of iHealth. Talk to me about that. What was that segue period like?
Yeah, so we were transitioning out of spas. We were transitioning into saunas. We'd found our own supplier. We had our own brands. We started doing less spas. We're just doing wholesale in the spas. And then eventually we decided to just go infrared saunas the whole time. And my involvement really kind of went to the next level was actually at the start of 2017. I'd been working full-time a few years by that stage. I think I was 20 when I started working full-time. And then when I was 24, a few things happened in the background. So Dad, I said he was always the business guy. He wasn't the health guy. And he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Oh, wow.
The end of 2016. And it was around that time, like family business dynamics were kind of kicking off, and we just disagreed on a few things. We agreed on a lot, but we disagreed on a few things. And I had this deep passion for what we were doing. And I always said from the start, and I still say to this day, like, we don't sell saunas. We're helping people with their health. We're helping people who want to change, people who want to change something in their life, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally. That's where we come in, right? And we're helping people achieve high levels of health and experience more in their life. That's what I was always passionate about, because I saw in my own life, when I started putting my health as a priority, things changed for the better. And so when Dad was diagnosed, that was a real catalyst. And I remember a few weeks later, I sat him down. I said, Dad, you clearly need to stop working. Like, he was a workaholic for his whole life. That's a whole nother topic. But I said, you need to stop working or I'm going to quit, because I can't keep doing this. I can't see you running yourself into the ground. And we need to change some things here, because at the time the business wasn't profitable. And within a week, he agreed. He said, okay, all right. So at the start of 2017, I was the guy, 24 years old, and thinking back now, really freaking ignorant to the work that needed to be done. But I had that belief in what we're doing was like quite literally going to change the world. You know, I really felt that, and I still do feel that. And so that was when my involvement really went to the next level, and we got stuck in, you know, and so from there, like, we'd given up the spas years prior to that. But from there, it was, okay, how do we create more value on what we're doing? How do we double down on helping people achieve high levels of health? How do we make our product better quality? How do we provide better customer service? All this kind of stuff started coming through at that stage.
Yeah, right. And so, yeah, the Alzheimer's, that's I know all too well about that. My grandmother had vascular dementia, and my uncle had a form of, I don't think it's a form of Alzheimer's, it's a form of dementia called frontal lobe syndrome. It's a bit rarer. But yeah, that stuff is horrifying, because just they slowly evaporate as an individual.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah, you know, it's like a slow death, but their physical body is still here.
The physical body's there, but mentally they become a child again.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way I remember my uncle Steve, because he passed recently. We were at his funeral, and to be honest, what's amazing at funerals like that is people aren't that upset, but they're almost glad for the person. Do you know what I mean? Like, as in, it's sort of relieving. But it was one thing that we spoke about, like, repeatedly, is like Steve returned to his innate state as a kid almost, which was utterly fascinating, sad. Sometimes it would make you happy, but yeah, that dementia, Alzheimer's, all that sort of stuff is really, really hard. Do you because it runs in my family, and you raised a few points there, because it's something that I've always battled with. And you spoke about selling health, and it sounds like you, as that millennial generation, have dealt with it the way that I have as well. Is you've got parents, or a parent who's a workaholic. My dad's a workaholic. I've tried to temper that part of my personality, but there's definitely like an element in me that's always wanting to prove myself to him. And so talk to me about how your focus on health changed your life in particular, and then how you made those changes. Was there like a crucial moment there for you?
Yeah. With the business that we had, we were always seeing sick people, right? Because infrared sauna has been shown to help reduce chronic inflammation. It helps with detoxification. It helps improve sleep. It improves cardiovascular performance, right? These things help a vast majority of general chronic illness, right? So people were coming to us and they weren't well. And that, along with what was happening with my dad, was like, it was like I was seeing the future. It's like, if I continue to live the way I'm living, which at the time wasn't super healthy, in my early 20s, like I'm gonna end up like these people, because I'm living the same lifestyle that these people are making. And so I was kind of like seeing the end result, and therefore quite quickly I was like, I need to make some change in my health, so to prevent getting to that point, And so I started doing lots of juice fasts. I started eating really cleanly. I started exercising differently. I started using sauna regularly. I started focusing on the importance of sleep. All these things, like the fundamentals of health, I call them, became my number one priority, to make sure that I was looking after myself. In my book, I talk about, in the opening couple chapters, linking chronic stress, chronic poor sleep, and chronic alcohol consumption with Alzheimer's. And there's a lot of science linking those things now. And guess what? That was the life that my dad lived. He was chronically stressed, like all the time, couldn't stop thinking about work. He drank at least two drinks a night, whether it's a couple of beers and a glass of wine or whatever that might be. And he didn't sleep well because of those two things, incidentally. And then he ended up, taking sleeping pills as he got older, which means we don't get into our deep and our REM sleep, which is where the beta amyloid's cleared out of the brain. So all these things were kind of adding up to, it's no surprise that he ended up with Alzheimer's. And so that, along with working with these clients every day, really inspired me to look after myself and put my health as a top priority. I've done a lot of deeper fasting since then, fasted 30 and 21 days on water, and eaten raw for a year and a half, and experienced the most clarity I've ever experienced since doing those sort of things, giving up coffee, haven't drank alcohol in years, these kind of things. And part of it, if I'm honest, is because I was scared shitless of ending up with chronic disease when I was older. Yeah. But I was lucky enough to see the end results of living in that way. And that was, so now that kind of comes through in what we do at Found Space. It's about helping people work through those challenges to, live a bit longer and a bit healthier.